$20 million per federation, 51 days to decide. FIFA's new commercial entity, valued at $20 billion and reportedly backed by a vehicle linked to Joshua Kushner, promises the biggest payout in football governance history, and UEFA is already threatening a World Cup boycott. Infantino does not need to win an argument. He only needs 211 federations to answer separately, and that is exactly why this deadline exists. On July 29, 2026, FIFA dispatched a 5-page official circular to all 211 member associations. The document laid out the terms of a massive structural shift: the creation of FIFA Forward Enterprise, a new commercial subsidiary valued at $20 billion. This entity will consolidate the broadcast, sponsorship, ticketing, and licensing rights for the men's and women's World Cups. To fund it, FIFA plans to sell a 20% minority stake to private investors, raising $4.2 billion in upfront equity capital. But the immediate focus for the federations is a single clause. FIFA is offering a one-off payment of $20 million to every association that formally signs on. This is not a pooled grant or a collective development fund. It is an individual, optional offer. To claim the money, each federation must submit its written acceptance by September 19, 2026. This timeline establishes a 51-day decision window. Because the process bypasses a collective Congress vote, there is no assembly debate and no unified veto mechanism. Instead, 211 separate presidents must make an isolated choice behind closed doors. Accepting the money binds the federation to the new commercial entity and its private investment model. Rejecting it means foregoing the $20 million entirely while remaining a FIFA member. The clock began ticking the moment the letter was received. The financial machinery behind this offer relies on a structural shift, moving away from FIFA's traditional reserve-based funding. Rather than drawing from existing cash reserves, the proposed $20 million payouts are directly tied to the sale of the 20% minority stake in FIFA Forward Enterprise. This newly created private limited company, incorporated under Swiss law, serves as the conduit for external capital. FIFA maintains that it will retain absolute control over football governance, competition calendars, and regulatory decisions, offering investors a non-controlling share in exchange for $4.2 billion in upfront equity. The primary driver on the investment side is reported to be Thrive Eternal, a permanent capital vehicle launched by Joshua Kushner's Thrive Capital. The identity of this lead investor introduces a complex political dimension to the transaction. Joshua Kushner is the brother-in-law of former U.S. President Donald Trump. In the highly regulated and politically sensitive European market, this connection carries immediate reputational risks. Major multinational sponsors, including Adidas and Coca-Cola, operate under strict compliance frameworks. Internal corporate discussions have already flagged concerns that association with a Trump-linked investment vehicle could trigger regulatory scrutiny within the European Union, potentially complicating existing multi-million-dollar partnership agreements. Despite these political complications, the financial promise remains the central selling point of the restructuring. FIFA projects that the commercial spinout will unlock more than $10 billion in development funding over the next 4 years. This represents more than a doubling of historical allocation levels. For the transaction to function, however, the capital must flow from the private market into the Swiss subsidiary before being redistributed to the member associations. The payout is entirely dependent on the successful execution of this private equity deal, effectively linking the future development of global football to external commercial markets. For the vast majority of FIFA's 211 member associations, survival depends entirely on Zurich's financial distributions. A $20 million cash injection completely rewrites the financial reality of these smaller federations. To make this gap clear, look at the annual operating budgets of Belize, Fiji, and Madagascar, which run on roughly $3 million, $4 million, and $5 million respectively. For these administrations, a single $20 million payout represents up to 6 times their entire yearly expenditure. This capital translates directly into concrete infrastructure. On the ground, it funds new pitches, youth academy coaches, team travel, and basic administrative stability for the next decade. Foregoing these funds to stand with wealthy European associations is a luxury these nations cannot afford. When local survival is on the line, the decision to sign becomes a matter of basic arithmetic. Infantino's offer is structured to bypass collective debate. Instead of a single vote on football's commercial future, the proposal fragments the decision into 211 isolated private calculations. This structure exploits a classic economic dilemma, the free rider problem. A small federation can quietly pocket the $20 million while hoping that wealthier, more powerful nations bear the political and legal costs of blocking the deal in court. By forcing each nation to act independently, FIFA ensures that a collective rejection becomes almost impossible to coordinate. A unified stance is hardest to achieve when the incentive to capitulate is private, immediate, and life-changing. The September 19th deadline serves as a tactical wedge. It deliberately compresses the time available for opponents to build a unified defensive front, forcing isolated FA presidents to sign before their neighbors do. Through this structured isolation under intense time pressure, FIFA relies on fragmentation rather than persuasion to dismantle resistance. The resulting governance gridlock leaves world football severely divided, turning a shared sporting heritage into a marketplace of individual bidders. UEFA responded immediately on July 28, 2026, issuing a definitive statement. The World Cup is not FIFA's to sell. None of us are the owners of football. The following day, UEFA convened an online emergency meeting of all 55 European national associations, establishing an organized institutional resistance to the 5-page circular. Leaked minutes show that Germany, England, Spain, and Italy voiced strong support for a collective boycott, while the Netherlands and Norway called for a legal challenge first. While not an official declaration, these reported discussions reveal that UEFA members are actively weighing a coordinated boycott of both the Senior World Cup and the Club World Cup. Internal opposition is growing. Reports indicate that some European nations are even questioning their long-term FIFA membership. By withholding the sport's most lucrative market, this collective European front directly threatens the multi-billion-dollar valuation of the proposed subsidiary, complicating Infantino's fast-approaching September 19th deadline. The standoff exposes a fundamental division of power. Europe holds the commercial cards, supplying 45% of global World Cup broadcast revenues, roughly $4 billion, along with the world's premier clubs and players. Yet FIFA owns the legal rights to the competition itself, backed by a voting majority of 211 member associations. If this deadlock breaks, the damage will be mutual. For European nations, a boycott threatens massive contractual breaches with domestic broadcasters, potentially triggering $500 million in liquidated damages, alongside $10 million penalties for clubs refusing to release players. Conversely, proceeding without Europe's elite squads destroys the premium product that gives FIFA's commercial vehicle its value. The struggle is a calculated war of attrition, where one side controls the tournament and the other owns the actors. If neither side backs down, the sport faces a fractured reality. A boycotted World Cup could force a delayed tournament, or worse, a depleted competition missing Europe's elite. Broadcasters and sponsors would immediately file massive breach of contract lawsuits, freezing billions in commercial revenue. Players would find themselves trapped between national team duty and employer clubs facing severe financial penalties for releasing them. While speculative alternative tournaments might emerge, they offer no immediate stability. Ultimately, this leaves football's governance broken, forcing a choice between collective unity and the pull of immediate cash. For more stories on the business of global football, subscribe to the channel. Football now stands at a permanent crossroads. By leveraging immediate capital against long-term sovereignty, FIFA has exposed the steep price of collective resistance. The game's future is no longer just about sport, but corporate control. Subscribe for more analytical football stories.